So I've really thought about how I could start this video. Why would you even care? Why would you even care about an animal on the other side of the world? A tahr, a mountain goat. Well, the reason being is that it's part of who we are as hunters to care about global wildlife and global wildlife conservation. So right now, on Tuesday of next week, there's going to be a decision made to cull all of the tahr out of the national parks of New Zealand to a density of 0. Eradication. So you would expect as a hunter for us to come across as this rhetoric that says we want all the animals on the mountain, and that's just not true. We understand that management has to occur. There has to be culling from the government because the hunters themselves, recreation and commercial, cannot handle the population management just on their own. As hunters, we want to sit in the middle. We want to be able to hunt tahr, but we also understand that there's a management need to maintain a certain density. Tahr management needs to go away from the species and it needs to be centered on the density. I think most hunters would agree that that is necessary. That is a middle ground. The problem here is that everyone doesn't believe that there's a middle ground. You either are on this side of the fence or you are on this side of the fence. You're going to hear a lot of things swirling around this tahr issue. So we decided to tell you some of the truths. 100 years ago, they were gifted to New Zealand by the Duke of Bedford, and 13 individual animals were released around Mount Cook. 100 years ago. The population today is around, well, that's to be debated, 20,000 to 34,000. So we're not talking about 1 million animals on the mountain. We're talking about 30,000 animals across the entire range of where the tahr live. There's more sheep in a high alpine private farm than there are tahr. So let's talk about impacts. Let's talk about ecological impacts, because that's what you're going to hear. We have to get rid of the tahr because they're a pest species. Well, no, not really. They're a game species. They are an animal that we need to protect. The argument is that they're grazing all the tussocks. They're grazing all the alpine tussocks down. Well, if you knew New Zealand and you knew the geologic history of New Zealand, those Alps, those high alpine areas where these tahr live, are constantly shifting. It's like a piece of paper that you can take and you can crumple it up. And that's what the mountain looks like. And that's happening day after day after day in New Zealand. Earthquakes, rock slides. A couple of tahr aren't going to change the landscape in comparison to a rock slide. So let's talk about responsibility. Tahr in their native range in the Himalayas are not faring well. Their populations are drastically down, if not in the next couple of years going to be locally extant. So New Zealand has a responsibility, a global responsibility for the possibility of repopulating a species that has gone locally extinct in its native range. So the idea of eradication of a species goes against everything that non-hunters, hunters, anti-hunters stand for, which is maintaining the bastion of wildlife biodiversity on this planet. I think the final truth that's probably the most important in today's age, this age of COVID, is the economics. The economics and the jobs. The economics and the jobs that trophy hunting and hunting brings to New Zealand. $100 million. $100 million comes into the New Zealand economy because of hunting. And more often than not, they're coming to hunt tahr because of its iconicness, this iconic status, this lion goat of the Alps of New Zealand. That's what everyone wants to come see. That's what everyone wants to come hunt. The driver is essentially being removed. Go beyond the $100 million. Think about the jobs, the outfitters, the cooks, the skinners, the helicopter pilots, the restaurants, the hotels, all suffering. That animal that can be used for conservation purposes around the world is not needed. Lastly, I'll say this. If they decide to eradicate tahr in the national parks, what's next? Chamois, red stag, all the other animals that are quote-unquote feral. So that's why you need to care. That's why you need to support this effort. As early as Wednesday, it could start. And if the cull goes forward, we're in trouble. Big trouble. Because it's just going to be a knock-on effect. So stand up, make your voices heard. Give your money because they're going to need it. So That's it. That's the truth. If you like this message, share it. Subscribe on our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. We want to just push the message as far and wide as we possibly can. We're just grateful and humbled and just say thank you.